Now I invite Gilly, Rob, Alice and Ruth to speak. I'm not sure who's first.
You first, me first.
High five, you first.
You first?
You first.
Kia ora. Welcome and thank you for joining us this afternoon. There was a time in my father's life when he would have been considered an early adopter. I remember him skiing on Coronet Peak. Everyone was, of course, going downhill. My father, however, was skiing uphill. His travels in Europe brought, amongst many things, a fondness for a good cup of coffee, and he was one of the first in Manapuri to be grinding his own beans. He had a keen interest in Māori culture and over the years learned some te reo. He enjoyed telling the story of the time he had met a Māori elder who had told him that if a family lives on a piece of land for 3 generations, then they become tangata whenua. In this way, he and we are tangata whenua. His mihi would have told us that his ancestors were English. He was born in Manapuri, his river, the mighty Waiau. His mountain, well, I'm not sure. There were a few to choose from, but I never did get around to ask him which was most special to him. Suffice to say, he was a mountain man. He was John Robert Murrell, Jack. He shared his knowledge of Māori at our wedding. He was fond of speeches. We were a small group enjoying lunch in the sun on the lawn at the guest house. During his speech, he pulled a taiaha out of the hedge while regaling us with a story of a Māori chief travelling up the Waiau from Te Waiwai Bay, and then burst into a song from HMS Pinafore. Needless to say, the assembled group was somewhat bemused, particularly Philippa and her parents, who had only met him for the first time the night before and who had freshly arrived from England. Whilst they may not have understood, they knew, as everyone there, that Dad was unique, and that made him very special. Although he was very special, he did the ordinary stuff that life is made of. His curriculum vitae was full, rich and varied. He was a businessman. He owned and operated the general store and the associated post office. He was proud of the family's long and dedicated service to the post office. And I remember the day, aged 8, when he got me to sign the Declaration of Secrecy that was required to be a postal agent. Because of his business interests, he was involved in the early days of fuel and promotions. He had a keen interest in putting the local area on the map for tourism. He was part of numerous community groups and had a particular keen interest in acting as a member of the Fiordland Players. He was also involved in the ambulance service, and I remember one school day sitting at breakfast and Dad jumping up and racing off as he'd been called to go and assist a local woman giving birth. I never found out how that went. Hopefully okay. He had a thirst for knowledge, and he was very happy with his nose in a book. He learned te reo. He also learned basic Spanish for his climbing trip to South America and had enough German to make conversation with the guests at Grand View. He was also a huge fan of the English language and had read the entire concise Oxford Dictionary. That's the big one. There was nothing more he loved than passing his knowledge on to his family and friends, and if you ever asked him a question, he always had an answer. But sometimes sometimes it might take a while. Your patience would pay off, though, as the answer would, for the most part, be wise and considered. And then there were the family holidays. Once there was a good easterly blowing. Dad, my sister Gillian, and I sailed in the 12-foot dinghy out to the mouth of Doubtful Sound. I was 7. This was my first experience of the Southern Ocean swell. Our first night was spent in a cave he had discovered previously in First Arm. This was all fine until I woke up due to a smouldering sleeping bag. I was just a little too close to the campfire. Our second night was in the old hut in Dee's Cove. We had a fine time, except that this time I woke up after falling out of the top bunk. I had always considered my father to be very safety conscious, but on reflection, anyway, all good fun. From an early age, I've been grateful for the environment that my parents provided for my upbringing. My father was a unique, intelligent and remarkable man, and he was a major shaper in my life and the next generation. Thanks, Dad, and thanks from the grandkids as well. I will end with an analogy, if you'll indulge me. As we know, one of my father's passions was climbing. Well, when I look at parenting, I think it's a little like climbing. Up ahead, I had Dad leading the way. We were roped up behind. Up on the snow, he would cut steps and I would follow in those footsteps. He pointed out hazards, flaws in the snowpack, crevasses. Sometimes he would slip and I would learn from that too. He showed me a way. Then after a while I realised he was not up ahead anymore. And I, in fact, had my own team roped on behind. Now, when I look back, he's not there. He hasn't fallen. He's just unclipped, gone solo. See you back at the hut, Dad.
It's a hut. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. His acts being 7 ages, at first the infant, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms. Then the whining schoolboy, his satchel and shining morning face, creeping like a snail unwillingly to school. And then the lover, sighing like a furnace with woeful black ballad, made to his mistress's eyebrow. Then a soldier, full of strange oaths and bearded like the pard. Jealous in honour, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation even in the cannon's mouth. And then the justice, in fair round belly with good cape and lined, with eyes severe and beard of formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances. And so he plays his part. The 6th age shifts into lean and slippered pantaloon, with spectacles on nose and pouch on side. His youthful hose, well saved and a world too wide for his shrunk shank. And his big, manly voice, turning again towards childish treble, pipes and whistles in his sound. Last scene of all, that ends this strange, eventful history, is second childness and mere oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything. That was from William Shakespeare's As You Like It, spoken by Jacques. To me, Dad was the consummate actor. There were so many things he could do. It was hard for him to pick just one. Acting and singing was one of them. In 1960, Dad was an active founding member of the Te Anau Drama Club, which started by competing with one-act plays in the British Drama League. In 1970, the club changed its name to Fiordland Players. He acted and produced over 12 years, and in press reviews he received honourable mention in the role as Percival in the musical The Boyfriend and as Buffalo Bill in Annie Get Your Gun. Like he said, he had a flair for the dramatic. I'd just like to read you a couple of, and this is probably where I'm going to get into trouble with Margaret. I was probably going to read something that Martin was going to say and got edited out. So this is from Martin. Sending you strength at this time. Yeah, lots of stories and talking to Trev, and he was saying that the four of them were in a tent in Fiordland rain, and he wished he'd packed a piece of hose so he didn't have to go out in it. Then we had Ellen Mary, who's unfortunately not here today to be with us. He was so naughty. He was well known for writing letters to the editor for the Southland Times. And this is one that I found recently. The Shriek of the Leek. Jenny is in error and Mervyn Cave is right. If it were not for the meat industry, millions of our happy stock animals would never have seen the light of day, never had perfect pastures, delighted in the simmering sun. She lies about a cruel, painful and terrifying death for the animals. Last week, I think, she mentioned they're having their throat cut rather horribly. Rubbish. There isn't a knife man in New Zealand capable of killing a cow with a knife without himself being trampled to death first. All stock are rendered deeply and profoundly unconscious before they are slaughtered. The rest of this letter will be clearly understood by my devoted reading public. Since I became profoundly deaf, I can hear the flowers and vegetables speaking to me. I can hear the shriek of a leek as it's pulled from the ground. Few people realise that a potato freshly dug from the ground is an unborn child, waiting to be greened by sun and grow another plant. Last time I dropped a freshly washed potatoes into hot water, they were crying piteously. I staggered away in horror and didn't want to eat dinner anymore. So Ellen Mary has sent this message. Ellen is Martin's sister, I won't call brother, and Margaret's daughter. Sad news, but also a touch of relief. I hadn't seen him much in the last few years, but he gave me some exceedingly amazing experiences as a kid. He killed a deer with a pocket knife while Rachel and I sat on it, gave us an anatomy lesson, then carried it out. I walked the Kepler with him and Ruth for the first time, I think only in 2 days. I remember trundling behind him in his underwear in the back valley, him always trying to impart some kind of lesson. Anyway, I hope the next few days go smoothly for you guys. And of course, Rachel is here with us. I wanted to tell the story, but it's, there's lots of stuff that wasn't inappropriate, like, the gong that we banged for New Year's Eve with Topper farting up the paddock, So there were, I said it out loud, didn't I? Oops.
Topper's a pony.
Topper's a pony. Yeah. Topper's a pony, not the gong.
Yeah.
No, it didn't flow, did it? No. Okay, like everybody has said, he always would have had an explanation for everything. I'm not going to go into the explanation for the reasons behind this poem, except that it speaks to me. This is Funeral Blues by W.H. Auden. Stop all the clocks. Cut off the telephone. Prevent the dog from barking with a juicy bone. Silence the pianos, and with muffled drum, bring out the coffin, let the mourners come. Let aeroplanes circle moaning overhead, scribbling on the sky the message, he is dead. Put crepe bows around the white necks of public doves. Let the traffic policemen wear black cotton gloves. He was my north, my south, my east and west, my working week, my Sunday rest, my noon, my midnight, my talk, my song. I thought that love would last forever. I was wrong. The stars are not wanted now. Put everyone out. Pack up the moon and dismantle the sun. Pour away the ocean and sweep up the wood. For nothing now can ever come to good. Thank you.